Well, welcome along to Science Sketchbook's video on microorganisms. So micro means tiny, and an organism is a life form. An easier name for microorganisms are microbes. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the three main types. But before we get into the three main types of microbes, let's just talk about how tiny microbes really are. Now in science, a sense of scale is very important. You have to know the correct measurement to use for different objects. So for example, if you were talking about the distance between your house and your school, you might describe that distance in kilometers. So it might be 5 kilometers away, and the abbreviation for kilometers is km, lowercase. But kilometers wouldn't be very good if you were trying to describe how far you could throw a ball. For this, you might use meters. So this might be 30 meters, say. And the abbreviation for this is just a lowercase m. But say you wanted to measure something like how long your legs are, you might use centimeters. So maybe your legs are, 70 centimeters long. But again, if you wanted to measure something smaller, say a playing card, you might use millimeters. So if we measure this, and the abbreviation for millimeters is mm, as you can see. Now, those you're probably quite familiar with, but in science we obviously deal with some very, very small things. So when we come back to microbes in a minute, we'll be looking at things which are smaller than 1 millimeter, things that you need a microscope to see. So for example, if you wanted to measure the width of a human hair, you would need to use micrometers. And a human hair is between 60 and 120 micrometers, and the abbreviation is μm. But when we get really small, we have to use yet another measurement. And if you wanted to measure some atoms, for example, 10 hydrogen atoms are 1 nanometer, which, as you can imagine, is incredibly small. So you'll notice that the whole system is based on the unit of the meter. So a kilometer is 1,000 meters. A centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. A millimeter is 1,000th of a meter. A micrometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. And a nanometer is 1/1,000,000,000th of a meter, which is incredibly
tiny.
So back to our microbes. Our ant is probably about 3 millimeters, by the way. And our first main type of microbe is fungus. And a single-celled fungus. And believe it or not, these are the biggest of our three types of microbes. So inside the fungus, we have a nucleus. We have some food storage granules, and then we have the vacuole, and we have the cell wall, and inside the cell wall we have the cell membrane, and then the rest of the cell is made up of the cytoplasm. So let's label them. Now, the important thing to know about microbes is that they're often associated with diseases. Now, in humans, a fungus can cause diseases such as athlete's foot and thrush. Now the next type of microbe is bacterium. So if fungus are between 2 and 10 micrometers, bacterium are between 1 and 5 micrometers. So again, we have a cell wall, a cell membrane, and a circular chromosome, which contains the genetic information. which in the fungus is contained in the nucleus. So there's no nucleus with bacterium, just a circular chromosome. Bacterium, or bacteria, which is the plural, cause many diseases including cholera, typhoid, tuberculosis, otherwise known as TB, chlamydia, and also food poisoning. But bacteria aren't always bad. There's lots of good bacteria inside you. In fact, in the human adult, there's about a kilogram of bacteria. Now, the final type of microbe we're going to talk about in this video is the virus. And a virus is usually around 0.1 of a micrometer. Now, a virus doesn't have a cell wall. It just has a protein coat. And it doesn't even have a nucleus or a full chromosome, but it does have strands of DNA. And for this reason, because they only reproduce inside a host cell, some scientists say that they shouldn't actually be classified as microbes, but for our purposes, we're listing them as a third type. Viruses can cause the following diseases: the common cold, to HIV, influenza or the flu, measles, and also chickenpox. So there are three main types of microbes. There are many different types of fungi, bacteria, and viruses. They're not all bad, but some of them do cause some horrible diseases. These are infectious diseases. We've given them measurements in micrometers, which you'll remember is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. So too small to actually see, but still have a huge effect because they cause all of these diseases.